It begins with Phil Spencer, who spoke this week, which means we do have news. Kicking things off, fan suspicions on the compatibility of Steam Deck and xCloud has been quelled. In a tweet, Phil posted a photo of Valve's newly announced handheld with Xbox Game Pass streaming loaded up on it, showing that this may be the brand's answer to handheld gaming. The caption reads, "Was at Valve Software this week talking with Scott, Eric, Gabe about Steam Deck. After having mine most of the week, I can say it's a really nice device. Games with me on the go, screen size, controls, all great. Playing Halo and Age feels good. xCloud works well. Congrats, SD team." We got some more. On a separate note, he took an interview with Games Radar, which labeled some familiar beats. His team's pledge to his strength found within a diverse portfolio, that gaming is everywhere, the devices they can reach through the cloud. You've heard stuff like this before.
Yep.
Curiously, the interview took a sharp turn into captivating territory as he was asked about the consistent design of PlayStation's blockbuster titles. Quote, "Our strategy is not just to go be like someone else," he says. "I get a push sometimes of where's your version of this or that game? I've been in this industry for a long time. I have a ton of respect for creators on all platforms, and I know many, many of them. But it's good for doing something different than what other platforms are doing. We're not in the business of just trying to create a green version of somebody else's blue or red colored platform. That's not the example of creativity that I want to see in the games industry," end quote. The interviewer pressed Phil's Nintendo button multiple times thereafter until an answer was coughed out. Quote, "You know it's the right answer because people usually ask me about releasing one individual game or another. And what I say is I want the full Xbox experience to be something that we deliver. We have no plans to bring it to any other kind of closed platforms right now, mainly because those closed platforms don't want something like Game Pass. There's a ton of open platforms out there for us to grow in, the web, PC, and mobile. So all of our focus, frankly, is on those platforms. That's not a slam to anybody else who has a system that works for them. I can see why the disruption of Game Pass is not something they want right now," end quote. We got a lot to go through here. Let's start from the top, because it's probably the simplest. Steam Deck and Xbox Game Pass streaming compatibility has been confirmed. xCloud works great on this device, as we were hoping for. Does this get you a little bit more interested in that Steam Deck, knowing we got a little Xbox handheld in the making?
Listen, he know what it is. Phil know what he doing. And I told people, I was like, look, man, if Valve's going to do the work, it's to your interest to align with them. And I love it. I love that he's using the platform. I love that he's promoting xCloud. And also what I like about it is that, to me, this sets up the stage for that hardware physical that local integration from an OS standpoint. And that's ultimately what I think me and you both want as well, because I'm just looking at it as a local Game Pass device as well.
Sure.
So if you work with them on an OS level, right, because I believe it's Linux that they're using,
yes,
the potential is really strong. I love to see him embracing that. And to me, that sets up relations.
Good sign.
How did you take it?
Of course, King Handheld here. Very excited by this. What was great is when I saw this, I was not surprised. I expected this, and I think that's a good sign of, not to pat them on the back too strongly here, but it's really a good sign of the leadership at Xbox. Like, you looked at the Steam Deck, and one of my first points of excitement was the potential Xbox could find within it. And I'm happy that they felt the same and immediately got on it. And just a couple months later are like, yeah, this thing works great with our technology, because it's good for Valve, but they understand why Xbox gamers would be interested. What I'm wondering is, because Valve said, like, hey, we got the whole setup here that you can take and then make your own. I got to wonder if Xbox is ever going to take that opportunity and make their own handheld device. I feel like more and more as time goes on, it makes sense. And, Phil's all about getting stuff on other devices, as we just read. He didn't really word it like they don't want to put Game Pass on other devices. He's like, I understand how the disruption of Game Pass is something they don't want right now.
Right.
So all I'm saying is, if you could get xCloud and Game Pass games on your Steam Deck, and Microsoft does their own dedicated Xbox handheld, that's great, right? That's great
awesome
for him. That's the type of vision he's been pushing for a while. Like, there's not a limited amount of devices to fill. So I like that they've embraced this. It makes me very excited. Hearing Age works great on this and feels great on this to me is very uplifting because this is a game I thought of. I was like, yeah, that's the type of game I want to play, but I don't want to be posted up like this on my keyboard and mouse, man. My shoulders start to lock, elbow stiffens out. I was like, I'm in my workstation again. Yeah. I totally think that is the most relieving part of all of this is hearing like, you can play Age of Empires on your Steam Deck. So for me, that was
super promising. Love to hear that. Love to hear. And the second part? With the platforms, I'd still think in a perfect world, if you ask them, he wants to have Game Pass everywhere. That I always gonna feel that. It's just that right now it is, like you said, too disruptive. That there's really, what's the benefit of the other platforms putting it on? It's not enough benefit, and the user base isn't to where it's basically when you have the numbers to say, okay, if we have set 50 million plus subscribers on Game Pass, then it's more compelling to do that. And even so, I had this conversation, shout out to Miles Dompierre, was on the show. I had this conversation with him that you would have to make a curated list. You can't have Game Pass in its current state that has third-party games on a platform like a PlayStation and a Switch, which also had that, because then you're negating that, their physical sales on that level. So it would have to be kind of like an Xbox first party only curated version to then even entertain the idea. Right. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. So I think but this could be long off. I know Microsoft wants it. Right. The key is Sony, right now, there's no reason for them to play ball with Microsoft, and Nintendo, who knows? But I will say this last point. I don't believe Nintendo's all the way out of it yet.
No, they're 100%. I think out of the 3 big consoles, I guess 4 now with Steam Deck, I feel like Nintendo is going to be the first domino that falls.
I agree. I fully believe. Look, I know it's Phil Shelfwatch. The man playing chat. There's a reason you got to switch. Don't give me that. It just happened to be there. No, we seen the Luden statue thing. We know Kojima with the letter of intent. Phil, I know what you're doing. It's just things may take longer down the road.
If you want to even dismiss Phil's Switch on his shelf, look at the one with Sarah Bond in a professional studio where it's just like these random shelves are there and there's a Switch, and I'm like, y'all are talking to him. Yeah.
Come on.
And not only that, we literally have leaked emails where Phil openly went, we're not giving up yet on bringing Game Pass to other consoles.
Exactly.
So they're trying. And I think that, Nintendo will likely be the first to fall, because where do they stand to gain? I think my answer to that would be the exclusives that you don't have through streaming. If they announce their new Switch, which I think that's around the timing they'll do all this, because they do need a better wireless adapter in there. Ethernet needs to be a built-in for everybody. I mean, there's a lot of online infrastructure that it's going to rely on. And I think if you can get xCloud going in a much more functional way, that Game Pass will thrive on the Switch. And what they get in turn are those exclusives that they would never have otherwise.
Oh, absolutely.
Not only from like, let's make a deal type of standpoint, but they would never have them really, I think, in the first place, just because of how their console lacks the power to do so, and the work it would take to get it onto the Switch. Maybe you make a sacrifice like that for, I don't know, Halo Master Chief Collection. You bring that there, that would be huge. But beyond that, I don't think Nintendo will have these games. So I think they stand to benefit the most. PlayStation, it's really like, if Xbox continues to gobble up studios like we keep hearing they're going to, then I think that forces PlayStation's hand. So we'll see on that front. Obviously, PlayStation will probably be last due to that.
You made a good point. Last point I want to say with Switch is that we've seen, cloud versions of Control, cloud versions of. They've been playing in that online cloud space, because let's be real, as the generations go on, the gap between that Tegra chip that's in the Switch is just not be able to do third-party ports. So to see them to kind of play with that space, to me, fits well with xCloud, and it fits well with some type of Azure server deal to help their backbone and their infrastructure. Because as much as Sony may not want Game Pass, Sony understands that their infrastructure wasn't on the cloud level strong enough to compete for a long-term deal, long-term viability. Thus they partnered with Microsoft when they did the whole camera lens thing for your Azure servers thing.
And here's the thing, right? Is it seems like Xbox is pretty focused on getting people into Game Pass, not forcing you to buy a console. So that's where Xbox gains by, of course, getting it on the Switch as well. Is just the idea that the obvious buy-in and Nintendo can even benefit from the idea that, hey, maybe people don't want Nintendo games, but they're going to buy our system to play what few Nintendo games they're interested in, and mostly Xbox games.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like there's too much crossover there that
a lot of
can really
potential
benefit.
here.
Yeah. So I strongly believe, teasing aside, Nintendo just makes the most sense from a partnership standpoint. We've seen them playing nice for a while.